listening to Sports Radio Detroit.
Welcome to Grave Discussions. I am your host, Barnabas.
And I am Samael. Welcome to episode 91. Save yourselves from hell.
That's right, fiends, or as they say in Event Horizon, liberate tutte me, something, ex inferis. Pretty popular line, I think, from that film, and we're going to be discussing it as part of kind of an analysis today, and going to be kind of looking at, like sci-fi horror a little bit more in comparison to that movie. We've got Color Out of Space coming out, so we kind of thought it would be an interesting discussion to have, and you've never seen the movie.
No.
So I thought it'd be perfect.
I've heard of it here and there, so many people talk about it, and I was like, alright, what's the big deal about this? And I watched it, and kind of understand now.
Yeah, we're going to dive into that way more later on in our main segment. But first, as always, fiends, we do have to give a shout out to our gracious host network, Sports Radio Detroit.
Yes, and you can find Sports Radio Detroit on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Just look up SRD Sports Radio Detroit, and you can also visit sportsradiodetroit.com, buy some cool merch, help support them and support us, because we all do this week in and week out, especially the Sports Radio Detroit guys, especially us. And just show some support, you guys. Come on.
Yeah, no, everyone's super hard worker. There are so many awesome shows that are part of the network too, so if you do head up the website, you can check them out as well. But let's just dive right into it this week. Honestly, a little bit of a slower news week. There were some other articles about shit, but nothing, crazy. But this first one I think is kind of exciting, and at the same time I'm not sure how to feel about it.
Yeah, so they're making a sequel to Don't Breathe, and apparently it's going to follow the old man years later after the events at his house unfolded in the first one, and his sins, quote unquote, catch up to him. I don't know what that means. I really don't know what the fuck that could mean, honestly.
So, spoiler alert, I guess, for the first movie, Jane Levy's character does end up escaping. And then I think we see her, don't we see her like an airport or something? Like she's, like going away, basically, I think at the end.
I haven't watched the movie in like 2 years.
Yeah, it's been a while for me. But anyway, she survived. So I'm assuming, maybe she's notified like the police or something about this guy. So maybe, that's kind of what's going on. But I am interested. I don't know if a sequel is necessary. I think the first movie is fine. And importantly, Fede Alvarez is not coming back to direct it. It's going to be directed by Rodo Sayaguez, who is the co-writer of the first Don't Breathe and also Evil Dead.
Ooh.
So that's kind of cool. I don't know if he's really directed before, but, could be good, could be bad. I'm waiting to see more of like who's in it and what the story's going to be.
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to go with that story, so fuck it, we'll see.
Yeah. No release date or anything yet. So let's move on. This one is pretty cool announcement. It has been something that's been in the news before, but there was never like a firm date, and it hasn't come out yet. But now we know that Robert Englund's True Terror with Robert Englund is coming to Travel Channel in March.
Yeah, so he's gonna like narrate. He's like, I don't know whether it's fact or fiction, because like it was like kind of ambiguous in it. They're like, oh, they're gonna go through newspaper clippings and all this stuff. So I don't know if it's like a dramatization, like a more like they want it like a creepypasta, but they want them to seem real. So I have no idea what's going on with that.
Yeah, I think it's those kind of like weird stories that they're going to cover that do actually pop up, in real life from time to time, that like unexplainable shit. Like, I mean, Mothman was, obviously like a real phenomenon that happened, was actually featured like in newspapers and stuff like that. People really thought they saw, Mothman. So this is probably going to be stuff like that, just more obscure, I'm guessing. Small
I
town
guess,
shit.
but they're probably gonna make it a lot more like dramatic and like, oh, this happened, like that haunted series on Netflix or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Also kind of like Lore, which is a good podcast, but there's like an Amazon Prime series where they kind of did these like recreations of the stuff that he talked about. So I'm assuming this is going to be kind of similar to that, except that Robert Englund is going to be like the host, which is cool. He's not really doing a lot else these days, so I'm excited to see it for him mainly, but I guess each episode is going to cover 3 like stories. So kind of have an anthology format, which is kind of interesting. So
The White Travel Channel.
I don't know. I guess it's because they're going around the world to like look for.
I mean, before they were
stories.
like doing like scariest places on Earth, and they had that little short lady from Behind the Mask. She was like the librarian. She's like,
oh yeah,
she's like Eric Cartman, but the lady.
Basically, spot on comparison.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. I don't know. I like these shows kind of, especially if it's something that I've never heard before. Because I do read occasionally about like lore and stuff like that. And if it's weird and interesting, I'll check it out. Robert Englund's in it, so it's gonna be on the Travel Channel. It's gonna be coming out March 18th at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And I do just want to comment. The original title of the show is Shadows of History, which I kind of like better than True Terrors with Robert Englund.
Yeah.
Just my opinion. So we'll see what happens with that show, guys. The last article here is about something that was also apparently announced previously, but for some reason I don't think I ever got wind of it. But now there's like an official release date.
Yeah, Gremlins, Secrets of the Mogwai. It's a animated series going into like the roots of Gizmo and his now dead owner.
Yeah, it's going to be set in 1920s Shanghai and follow 10-year-old Sam Wing, who meets Gizmo, and then, I don't know, they go on wacky adventures and stuff. It's probably going to be targeted for, like, I would say maybe like the late teens to like 20s audience. Just like maybe you're a fan of, the OG movies, but you're still kind of young enough to appreciate like the animation. I don't know. We'll see exactly, but this is going to be like monsters and spirits from Chinese folklore and just crazy shit like that. I am kind of into it.
We'll see. I don't know. I'm not big on animated series besides like South Park, so.
Yeah. And the movies never really went into any crazy supernatural territory either.
No.
So
it was just like evil Mogwais. Oh.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they all kind of had their own personality and stuff, but it was like there weren't Mogwai doing fucking magic or something.
No, yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out in the show. I'll check it out, but it could just be a weird spin-off that didn't need to happen.
Probably.
Yeah. So we've got a few trailers here, guys, and then we're going to dive into our main discussion. Now, this is something that you actually need to catch up on still, but by the time you guys are listening to it, it'll probably already have dropped, and it's The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina Part 3.
Yeah, I haven't seen the second season or the Christmas special. I basically left off at season 1. Because I know if I watch season 2, I'm going to be like, well, now I got to wait a whole year for the next season, just like I did with you and with fucking Stranger Things initially. And now Stranger Things came out and Sabrina's coming out. And I'm kind of too lazy to watch all of that.
I get it. I mean, it's a commitment. They're like 10-episode, hour-long shows. So, I mean, it's not something you can't do over like a few nights. But, I mean, life happens and shit. But Sabrina is going to be supposedly taking over as the Queen of Hell to go after her boyfriend. I'm not going to go into, obviously, like everything that happens. But,
I mean, I've kind of read some like spoilers and they've found out the devil's her dad, like her real dad.
Something crazy. I mean, obviously, it's super, like, not convoluted, but just written that way, like, oh, of course she is.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. There's some pretty good drama. I don't really care about any of the romances and stuff.
Yeah, no.
But I like that they're keeping the tone, creepy and dark. So, I mainly just want to watch it for that. But that's coming out January 24th, so again, if you're listening to this on the weekend, probably already came out. You can go to Netflix and check it out. Next one, also coming out on Netflix, February 7th. This one's more of like a psychological thriller, but it looks like there might be some
aliens,
cool stuff in it. It's called Horse Girl.
Why? First of all.
So, I guess it stars Alison Brie, and she plays this kind of like weird, quiet, like quirky girl who works at an arts and crafts store, and she really likes her horse. Not like in a weird way.
Yeah, like, oh yeah, horse, come here. Like,
like she's seen that picture, on Google doing research. Horse cocks. No, but yeah, I guess she has a special relationship with her horse or something. I don't know how that factors into any of this shit, because the trailer really doesn't give anything away. It's just like she's having weird dreams.
They're just like, oh, horse girl. Oh yeah, by the way, her grandma was schizo and aliens, and also she can see the future.
And there's claw marks.
Yeah, claw marks on brick walls. Yes.
Weird. I was kind of thinking like maybe this is just a really trippy way of showing her to be like a werewolf or something like that, or like some kind of monster. Because I mean, come on, falling asleep, waking up in a random place.
Yeah, that's some werewolf shit.
You got abducted or some shit like that. So
what if she's like a werehorse?
Oh, werehorse. That horse girl.
She just like, nay.
Literally. Oh man, that would be crazy.
She just turned into a fucking stallion at the stroke of midnight.
Just starts like ripping people up and killing them and shit. Maybe.
So fucking stupid.
I don't think that that's what it's gonna be, but I don't know. I'm curious. It looks weird. It looks kind of trippy. Like there might be a crazy twist in it, and all the actors in it are good. So yeah, I'll check it out. That's February 7th, and the last trailer is actually the one I'm most excited about. So why don't you tell us about this one, Sam?
Oh shit! May the devil take you too. So after the events of the first Indonesian horror movie, where the demon Ayub or whatever the fuck his name was, so they survived it, and then now they're trying to conjure him back for whatever reason, right? And guess what happens? Bad things happen again, and there's blood, and there's demons screaming, and there's little girls screaming in their bed, and it seems like a little me to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I liked the first movie a lot, obviously. I think we both did.
Yeah, yes.
It paid homage to The Evil Dead in a lot of ways, but still kind of had its own uniqueness to it, which I really appreciate. And there were some really creepy scenes in that movie too, like with the mother especially and stuff.
Yeah.
This one, there's potential, I think, but they're definitely going more into like the Evil Dead 2 route, where it's going to be more kind of like campy, and I can already see a lot of like Easter eggs, like with her hand and stuff like that, being possessed or whatever. So I guess it's cool that they're trying to, sort of be like a love letter to the Evil Dead franchise, but I hope this one isn't like too campy.
It doesn't seem like it. It seems like it's going to be like a lot more intense. I just felt like they showed a lot in the trailer, like there was too much stuff going on with no context, which is cool if you show stuff with no context, but like don't show like the whole movie broken into like 500 parts in the trailer, because like it was like, here's a scene, another scene with a demon, back to this scene in the bed, demons, why'd you do that, more demons. Like it just showed the whole movie in no order, like in the trailer.
No, I agree completely, and I think that's just a larger issue with just trailers in general these days. I don't know who the fuck is approving all of these. I think they're just trying to keep people's attention, but they don't need to be that long, and they don't need to show like every huge thing in the movie. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no, let's just save some for us. Just be like 4 years ago or whatever the fuck, and then be like, and then I'm cool with it.
No, I agree completely, but I'm still excited for it. I like the first movie, so we'll see what happens. And it's coming out February 27th in Indonesia. So I'm hoping that we'll get a US release like either in the summer or maybe, I don't know, fall of this year. But TBD. So that's all the news that we have, guys. Before we dive into our main segment, or rather blast off into space and talk about it, we have a few words from some other SRD shows, so stick around.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Jeremy Bryant. Catch me, E, and Brian on Pearson's Piece, 8 to 9 a.m. on Sports Radio Detroit Network, CRB, on Spotify, iTunes, anywhere else you can find podcasting.
Because I feel like a salad tossing might feel good.
What? Out of Bounds Detroit podcast. Tuesday morning and Friday mornings here on sportsradiodetroit.com.
Welcome back, Ravers. So, as promised on this week's main discussion, we are going to be talking about and analyzing Event Horizon. So this one from 1997, directed by Paul W.S. Anderson. Fun fact, known as Paul Anderson, in the credits. And now he's Paul W.S. Anderson. It's like, Paul Anderson, cool guy. Paul W.S. Anderson. It's like that guy who's like, my dad's a lawyer.
Yeah.
He'll get you. Or some shit like that.
Oh my god, people with their fucking initials.
Yeah, but...
The artist formerly known as Paul.
Oh, man. But he's done some okay stuff, but I would say this is probably his best horror film for sure. And as I mentioned before, this was your first time watching it. So before we dive into the analysis, what was your first impression?
Definitely not what I expected. I thought there would be more crazy supernatural shit going on. I kind of expected everything that happened. I saw it coming, but people in the 90s really wouldn't. I thought the fucking special effects were kind of, they were okay, when they were on the ship and whatnot, but some of the explosions and stuff were yep, 90s. So, overall it was a good movie. I enjoyed it, and I picked this one for this week because last week we talked about underwater, and I was like, what's the opposite of that? Oh, in space, and... same thing, search and rescue team or whatever the fuck. They had their whole crew with the helmets on and basically same thing, same kind of premise except, in space and then, with the hero being a hero and at the end of the movie, I don't want to spoil anything, it's the same kind of thing happened.
Yeah, I think we can give spoilers for this one just because we're going to be kind of talking more about it.
Yeah, Lawrence Fishburne basically sacrificed himself.
Yeah.
But he was the captain. That was kind of what was different from Underwater.
Yeah, exactly. He had more of a commanding presence. I find that was kind of common with a lot of movies in that era. Not so much Ripley, even though she was one of the commanding officers of the Nostromo and stuff. But it's Lawrence Fishburne, so how can you not?
Yeah, I liked him.
And he went out valiantly, I think, but. Overall, yeah, rewatching this movie, I definitely noticed more of the special effects stuff that you mentioned and those kind of hokier moments. It's like the late 90s. And, this is actually the same director who had just done 2 years prior Mortal Kombat.
Oh, the first one?
Yeah. Which, hey.
I like it.
That's just a classic, but...
I don't care if the movie sucks. That was probably the first movie I ever watched.
Yeah, it's just crazy. I love that movie, but it's crazy to think that this is the same director. Kind of went in a completely different direction than just straight up action with fucking ice ninjas and stuff like that. But I think overall he did a good job. Interestingly enough, there's apparently a 130-minute version of this movie, or that was what he originally wanted to do. And that got chopped up because it was originally given an NC-17 rating, which is pretty much death. You're not going to even be able to show that. So he had to cut a lot of it out, cut a lot of the violence out, and the gore and stuff like that to make the current hour and 40-minute version or something like that. But yeah, okay, cool. I thought you might like it, but rewatching, I was definitely there's some shit in here that maybe you wouldn't really like,
I didn't really have too many gripes with it besides the the gravity drive, or like the stupid science, quote unquote science stuff.
Yeah. That's one thing I kind of wanted to dive a little bit more into, so I guess it's the perfect time. But just for some background, in case people forgot what this movie is about or whatever, this team goes on basically a rescue mission after getting this signal from a ship that had been lost for like 7 years, called the Event Horizon. It was like this research vessel, and they were doing some shadier stuff with this like technology. And Sam Neill's character, Dr. Ware, is like the guy who basically built the ship and built like the gravity drive and stuff. And it got lost trying to warp through space and basically went into hell.
Dun, dun, dun.
And they don't really dive super deep into that whole aspect, but it is like a big part of the film.
They're just like, oh, how do you get from point A to point B? Oh, straight line. Nope, you go straight there by folding space in half, and then you get there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but where does it like go if matter and time folds in on itself? I don't know. I need more time.
Yeah. It was very much like movie science. Like, I don't know how much it was really legitimate, However, I think the whole aspect of like blending science with like this bigger supernatural thing, like had the concept of hell, is interesting, because usually we either just get like one or the other. We get like alien, which is like a creature, or we get like a possession thing, and it's not too often that we get like supernatural demonic shit in space.
Yeah.
So I do think that is a cool thing that hasn't really been explored too much in horror. A lot of people say that this movie is like nonsensical. I think part of it is that.
Yeah.
It's like, why the fuck would you stumble upon hell in space?
I mean, I guess because like the whole hell being like below heaven, when really, like, if you look at it like religiously, if you look through all like the texts and stuff, actually hell is seated above heaven. So like that's how it worked in like the older religions and stuff. But like, I guess hell being a dimension and not up or down would make sense if they were to stumble upon it. And it's exactly what they said. They stumbled into another dimension accidentally. People started pulling their eyeballs out and eating each other's arms, and which is what would be happening, I guess, if they stumbled upon hell. But I don't know, man. I felt like there wasn't enough like imagery of hell. There was just like flashes. He's like, let me show you. And then there's people being like, their faces tied up with barbed wire while they're laying down and they're screaming. And it's about all hell is. It's kind of more dark and like Boskin or like Hellraiser with the Cenobites and all that stuff. And a lot of other movies, hell seems a lot more fucked up. In this one, it just seemed like people being like tortured by each other, which is okay, I guess. But like, I mean, you kind of would figure at the end that Sam Neill would be the one to fuck everything up and become the antagonist, and then Lawrence Fishburne would kind of have to save everyone. I mean, you see everything kind of coming. Like, you slowly see like when Sam Neill's character, he's like, he sees the pounding on the door and he's like, open the door. And he starts walking toward it, and then like the lieutenant puts him in like a wrist lock and he's like, hey, you need to think before you act.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh man, I see him losing grips with reality, and the ship is alive. Like, no, but whatever the ship brought back with it sure is. Like,
yeah.
It was probably some sort of like demonic entity, I guess.
Yeah, like a presence or whatever.
Yeah, but they didn't specify like what. It was just like omnipresent throughout the ship, which was weird, because usually we don't see demons like that. Like, we see them take shape, and we saw them take shape as like quote unquote hallucinations during, their stay in the Event Horizon, and you slowly see them like kind of losing their sanity, and then what's her face kind of followed her like dead son and like accidentally committed suicide or whatever. And I don't know, I guess it was more of like a trickster demon, it seemed like, and then it like became super malevolent when it took over Dr. Weir at the end and made him go completely batshit. But I think he was kind of batshit from the beginning, because he wanted to be with his like wife who died or whatever. So I don't know.
I don't think you can be completely stable if you're creating like black hole technology that like warps space and shit like that. But I did see Sam Neill's turn coming the first time I watched it even. And because, you know, he was always like obsessed with the ship and he was very passionate about remaining on board. So I think it got hold of him mainly like when he first stepped on the ship. He was like the most obvious vessel for it, I guess. But I still thought it was kind of cool that they didn't have this like, you know, weird CGI demon show up, or like even the whole like Satan thing. I'm glad that they didn't do that. Like it was a little bit more ambiguous, kind of meant to scare you a little bit more because it's not like you're not focused on one thing. It's like this evil can grip you from anywhere, and then suddenly you're trying to like shoot yourself out of an airlock and stuff like that, which was a cool scene. It was very suspenseful, you know, when Justin was in the airlock and whatnot. But you know, it's still kind of weird. I would almost rather it be just some super unexplained thing, not just like, oh, it's hell.
Yeah.
I'd almost rather just be some out of nowhere like cosmic
BDSM dimensions.
Basically Hellraiser in space, which I think was an actual film in the franchise. But yeah, something like that. And even if we saw more monsters or something like that, because basically the whole thing in this movie was that it was playing on their regrets, I think. Not even like their sins necessarily. It was just like things
shit
that
they felt guilty about.
Yeah, that they were like really attached to in life, that they grieved over.
Like we saw the captain's character was like, oh, I saw the fire engulfing one of my partners, and then I left him behind, this and that. And then I guess Sam Neill had some regret about his wife.
Yeah.
And then like the other chick had regrets, I guess, about her son. And other people I really don't remember, like if they had any regrets.
I think maybe, but I some of those like lesser people like Justin, I think were just meant to be taken just as pawns, like to show off.
He was in Idle Hands, wasn't he? He was the first dude, the young kid, little baby bear or whatever they called him.
Was he?
Yeah, he was. He was the douchebag with the pickup truck, and he had the earrings. He was the metalhead.
Oh yeah, he has completely different hair, so I didn't even think about it.
Yeah, that's him.
Is that the same guy?
That's him. That's the first. I noticed him the second I saw him.
I think their faces are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty sure.
It's
Wow.
him. He was the dude with the curly like blonde hair or whatever, and he was like the metalhead.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck is going on? He had that big ass truck.
Oh wow. I love that guy.
Yeah,
He's
same.
great. I mean, in this movie, he was. I think his screaming was weird. Yeah, it is the same guy, but he was cool. I think the whole cast in this movie was awesome.
Oh yeah.
Actually, you know, like Sam Neill is a kind of a horror rock star. Honestly, I was wrong though when I was talking to you before the show. He was in Daybreakers, which was like the last big horror
Daybreakers.
thing.
He was in the Final Conflict.
Yeah.
And the great fucking genre film Possession.
Yeah, fantastic. And he was
fucking awesome.
amazing. He's just a great actor in general. So I think he was one of the saving graces of this movie. Because, you know, the whole hell thing for a lot of people was too hokey, too nonsensical. I don't really think it was nonsensical. But I get where some people might be like, that's stupid.
Yeah, it's like, okay, hell.
You know, but at least they were kind of ambiguous about the whole entity and all that stuff. I do want to see like the director's cut, just because those scenes that you mentioned probably weren't like brutal enough or like disturbing enough. A lot of those scenes were drawn out more in the original like cut that Paul W.S. Anderson had in mind.
It's kind of what I'd want to see.
Yeah, me too. Like, even though it would be long, I still think if we really get that like brutality, I think that would make a lot more sense.
So last week we dealt with Cthulhu.
Mm-hmm.
Spoiler alert. And this week Satan. So
more or less,
we went from H.P. Lovecraft to sheep herders, biblical sheep herders who wrote random shit that people with all their heart believed for thousands of years.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, you know, like it's weird that this movie was like in space and stuff, but it dealt with this very like earthly thing. So I do agree it made sense to kind of make it this other dimension, but We could probably talk about a few other things. Again, like I said, the cast was fantastic. I don't really have too many gripes with like the performances or anything in this movie. I think they were all done well. The characters themselves, I mean, I didn't care too much about them. You know, Lawrence Fishburne's character, yeah, because he's got that star power, so you kind of have to. And he was just the normal like captain. You know, he was kind of a hard ass, but you also kind of rooted for him because he was just trying to do his job and look out for his crew. But I mean, there was no Ripley. You know,
No.
Sam Neill's character is the most memorable, and he's the fucking antagonist.
Kind of see it coming though. Like,
yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, you know, everything kind of flows naturally, which is not like a bad thing, but I was like, oh yeah, it would make sense for this to happen next. You know, so in that way it was kind of predictable. But what do you think about the production design and stuff? Like,
I think everything was fine. I like how they're like in 2015, like, and then they're like, and now 2040. It's like, you know what's funny? The date on there was January 23rd, like 2020 or something like that. And we're like January like 22nd now.
Yeah, very close. Who knows what could happen tomorrow?
Someone might find Satan on a ship.
It's possible. No, yeah, I think the year that they were in was like 2047 or something like that. But
yeah, I just saw January 23rd and I was like, oh wow.
Yeah, very close, indeed. I know. I think that part's kind of cool. The fact that it's not set like too far into the future, but they definitely got it wrong with 2015. It was like 2015, the first colonies are set up on the moon or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, damn, buddy, you were way off. Way off.
Maybe in like another like dimension.
Yeah,
where
maybe.
technology went more towards shit that mattered instead of like Instagram.
Yeah, but that's one of the cool things about sci-fi, you know, is that you can kind of take those liberties. You know, I can make a sci-fi movie now that's like, oh, well, in 20 years, you know, maybe we'll have flying cars finally. Maybe, I don't know, whatever, you know. And combining that with horror, I think, is really effective. In this movie, I think it did a good enough job. You know, it had the atmosphere down pretty well. It had that grungy kind of aesthetic to it, like the ship and everything. And I actually liked the whole gravity drive. Like, in that room, the way that they set that up was phenomenal. I think it looked super intimidating.
Yeah.
You know, with the black hole and everything, that was great. It's probably one of my favorite parts of the whole set. And it made for a really climactic, like, final scene, too.
My favorite part was when Sam Neill's character was like super bald and he had all those like cuts on his face.
Yeah.
And somehow he has his eyes back.
He's just, like, randomly naked.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, where the fuck are your clothes?
Who knows where he went?
It's true. Because they thought they killed him. And then he just, like, showed up again all covered in cuts and symbols and shit. But it was cool. I mean, you know, it was a little... At that point in the movie, it got really kind of, like, Hollywoody.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because, like, the last half hour was just explosions and more weird shit showing up on screen. And then Sam Neill's eyeballs were out. But I think it was pretty much effective. The first, like, 2/3 of the movie were the creepiest parts, though.
I can definitely see why people, you know, see this as like a cult movie and they like it a lot. But like for me, it's like not like up there with like other cult movies like Phantasm and Return of the Living Dead and, you know, like those kind of movies, or even like, I don't know, something like VHS. Like, I mean, I get the like this movie has, but I can also understand why like it kind of like didn't get like the recognition.
Mm-hmm.
Not it deserved, but it didn't get recognition at the time, and now it's more of like a cult movie. But I don't know. I was kind of like, I mean, it's okay. Like, that's kind of how I felt about it. It's good, but it's like okay, good.
You're like lukewarm about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel you.
I mean, I've like, it's been almost a full 24 hours now since I've watched it, and it kind of didn't really like stick with me. There's movies I watch and they stick with me, like Possession with Sam Neill.
Yeah.
Or like, you know, Midsummer and like Thirst.
I getcha.
But yeah, this one just really didn't really stick with me. Wasn't fucked up enough.
Yeah, exactly. I think if the director was able to put more of that stuff that he had to take out in, I think it would have been a lot better, honestly. You know, you still have to contend with all the hell shit and all the kind of wonky special effects sometimes.
Yeah.
But at the very least, there would be a lot more disturbing imagery and things like that. And maybe more like creepy dialogue and stuff. This movie was just missing that kind of longevity of a lot of those scenes. You know, we got those like subliminal kind of flashes of just images that, you know, if you pause them at the right moment, it's pretty fucked up. But there wasn't like a lot of it.
Too bad people couldn't do that at the movie theater, you know?
Yeah, I know, seriously. So, I don't know. So for you, we'll wrap up here, but, you know, for you, for a sci-fi horror movie, you know, what do you want to see in a sci-fi horror movie to really like leave that lasting impression with you?
In a sci-fi horror movie, we need claustrophobia. We need like a high sense of urgency. I don't want people just exploring shit and like, oh, shit just happens. I need like, yo, we got to do this and we got to get the fuck out or our like thing. So this had the high sense of urgency because they only had like 20 hours or whatever. If crazy shit's going to happen, I need it to be like super climactic. We need like blood. We need visuals. We need kind of trippiness since it's kind of literally out of our world. We need a good antagonist. We kind of had that, but I want more like either creatures, and if it's going to be demonic, make it like extremely like, make it like a super visceral experience. I don't want to like, oh yeah, that was kind of creepy, you know, people being tortured. I just want something really intense, like something that makes me feel like, yo, if I was out in space, or if I was somewhere and I was just like, you know, I'm in fucking space, I already feel vulnerable. I want something like, I want like a fucking, like a horrible threat, like the Relic in space.
Man. Yeah, I agree completely. I mean, that's why Alien was so successful, you know, because, see, the whole thing with the whole hell concept is that it's something that we're already kind of familiar with.
Exactly.
I like that they did something a little bit unconventional with it, but it's still familiar to us. You know, it's been around since the advent of religion and all that shit, you know? And, but like Alien did was just introduce this completely unknown monster, and it's terrifying. And yeah, I think we need more stuff like that. I was thinking the whole time that you were explaining, like, The Void did it really well.
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
Because even though like those monsters were kind of based off like humans, it was like it was totally out of left field, you know, like in a good way.
Trippy, visceral, high sense of urgency because the whole hospital's surrounded by a cult.
Monsters were fucking terrifying.
And a fucking portal was being opened into another dimension. There's an evil doctor / geneticist, whatever the fuck he was doing.
Yeah. Which, you know, I wouldn't say he was ultimately...
He was like the Sam Neill of that
more
movie.
convincing than Sam Neill or anything, but he was fine. I mean, his like final form was pretty cool and stuff. You know, he was pretty memorable. And Sam Neill was for the most part pretty memorable, but mainly just like the end. You know, so yeah, I agree completely. I mean, if it's out in space, especially stuff that's kind of based on Earth is a bit more like looser. I think, you know, we've seen stuff like The Endless. Which is kind of slower paced and has to deal with like time travel and stuff like that. But I just think there's so much that can be done with sci-fi horror. I think if you're not doing something that's at least a little bit original with that genre, then you're just going to be compared to other movies that have done it, and you're just going to like fall off.
I agree.
Know what I mean? So I am excited for stuff like The Color Out of Space just because it is different. It is based on like a Lovecraft thing, but it's not really something, like the premise isn't something that has been explored in horror really. So I'm kind of psyched about that. And yeah, I just want to see more kind of like innovative and just like raw stuff. Like if it's not super visceral, then at least be like mentally fucky.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
I don't know how else to describe it, but you know what
trippy.
I mean. Like, yeah,
Trippy as hell.
Almost like Mandy kind of. Mandy wasn't really.
Or Boskin. Boskin was fucking wild. That was a great movie. That's one of my like 9 out of 10 fucking supernatural / demonic horror movies.
Yeah, but you know, like Mandy wasn't really sci-fi, but the trippiness, the imagery, the feel of it was there for like a sci-fi movie, I would say. So. I definitely want more stuff like that, I think. And monsters are just appreciated because they're one of the main things that can be really scary in horror if you do it right. And like science fiction just lets you kind of do whatever you want with it. So I'm looking forward to Color Out of Space. Did you want to say anything else about Event Horizon?
No, I think we wrapped it up quite nicely.
Yeah, it's a good movie. Definitely not as crazy as when I first watched it, I think. Now in a rewatch, but I think it still holds up for the most part. Some of the effects are a little dated, but I think the story overall is good. The way they built the set and everything was incredible. I still think they should be commended for that. And I think it's rightly a cult movie now.
Oh, yeah. Just not as up there as something like Night of the Creeps or even like The Thing.
Yeah, nothing I'm going to like write home about, but
yeah.
It's fun to check out every now and then. So, speaking of Color Out of Space, we do think that that's going to be our next episode here. So you should be on the lookout for a review of that next weekend. But I think that's going to wrap it up here, Fiends. You can talk to us about anything we discussed today on our social media, Facebook and Instagram at Grave Discussions, or on Twitter at GraveDiscSRD. We also have a website, gravediscussions.net, where you can catch the latest episode and a lot more.
So tune in next week as we watch another trippy Nicolas Cage movie on Grave Discussion.
This has been an SRD production.